Drum Banger Productions. Sound you can feel.
Hey there YouTube, it's Donovan Capron. I'm a gospel producer out of Fort Lauderdale, and I'm here today to do an unboxing of the Behringer XR18 Digital Series Mixer. I purchased this unit here from Sweetwater, and the staff there has been amazing. I've been working alongside with Patrick Colblay. Once you buy something from there, they assign you a special agent to deal with you the whole entire time buying through Sweetwater. So just having that customer reassurance is amazing. When FedEx came and they dropped it right at my door, not even less than 2 minutes later, I received an email from Sweetwater saying, hey, your package is here at the door. We received it. Let us know how everything works out for you, and if we can be any kind of further assistance to you, please email us and let us know how. So just for that alone, I'm definitely going to be continuing to work with Sweetwater with all my continuing purchases. So let's go and open this puppy up and see what it's all about. It's very well packed. Like I said, great customer service. They even gave me some what looks like could be Valentine's Day candy. Where else can you get that, huh? Got some Laffy Taffies here. Okay, so here's a top view of everything, what it comes with. Got power, rack ears, documentation, and of course the mixer itself. Okay, the actual unit doesn't feel cheap. It's very, very rugged feeling throughout. You have rubber feet on the sides, metal handles, and metal throughout. I will say that I probably would not drop it on stage just because I like to take very good care of my equipment. And I also wouldn't keep it someplace that's going to be very damp, mostly due to slits on the side. The antenna does seem very sturdy as well, but I would definitely keep it in that position to make sure that it doesn't break if I were using it. It almost looked like this part here was a little arced, but I think that's just how they make their Ethernet ports. And then you have Wi-Fi and client access points that you can switch between. I'm most likely going to keep mine set on the access point so that I can interface with a lot of the equipment that's here and just test it out to see how good it is on its own. Okay, so in order to get the computer to connect to the XR18, you need to make sure that for whatever way you're using it, if you're using it as an access point as I am, that when you go browse your Wi-Fi settings, that you see it here on your right hand side. Same thing on your phone. I managed to get it up and going on my phone already. I went through my Wi-Fi settings, and you have to make sure that your internet optimizations are not on when doing this, otherwise it'll jump back to a network that has internet. So you need to make sure that if you're using this in an access point configuration, that you do it that way. Otherwise, if you do need internet, you can use one of the other modes on the XR18 to connect it directly to another Wi-Fi router. That way you can have internet both on your phone and on your computer should you need to. Okay, so I went through setup and I was looking to see first off if connecting to my USB would allow me to take full control of my mixer without using Wi-Fi or the Ethernet plugs or anything like that. And I did find that you can't do that. As of this writing right now, as I'm testing it, you're not able to do that. So if you do lose your Ethernet or your Wi-Fi connection, the mix will continue to go along as whatever state it was in. Any changes that you begin to make won't be reflected until it updates or syncs back again. That being with software version 0.5 beta. But who knows, they may update that later. So just verifying, I went and I disconnected it just to make sure that is correct and pretty much accurate. And what it'll try to do is it'll try to find the unit again as soon as possible. I also must mention that if you are using this in the live sound setting, if you do power cycle your stuff off, make sure that in case you're in a bind where you don't have any computer or anything like that, any Android or any smartphone device that you can get to right away, that you leave all your stuff unmuted so that you can still be able to operate with sound after a power cycle. At least then you'll have some form of sound if everything else fails. By default, this mixer is set up to be used as live sound mostly, so you don't see any 96K. It only does 4800 and 44.1, so there's no 96K there. Also, the way the solos are set up, it's set up more so for a live environment where you will hear your soloing in the headphones, and the rest of your mix will still be going to your main speakers. Whereas in a studio environment, when you solo something, you might want to hear it over your main near field speakers or something like that. So you'll just have to go into the settings and change that as needed. Okay, so I'm going to try to bring in the microphone real quick here. And here I'm getting ready to set my gain and my trims. I'm getting some good level there. Raise it up so that it goes to the main outputs. Okay. We have a low cut filter right here, and we also have a noise gate that we can add if we want to, and we can see that it's working right away. Now we have the USB input gain that we can turn on and off to pretty much A/B between the live input and the USB returns that are coming back into the board through whatever software you might have. That'll allow us to do things like a virtual sound check, or just to have 18 outs from your sound card go in. And then we have the insert chain that allows you to route effects through an insert. Like if you want to use some kind of special form of compressor or something, you can use it there. We also have the other compressors, and we have your panning, your left and right panning, and your switch to go to the left and right bus if you wanted to. Right now you have the fader groups and the mute groups and the auto mix features. They are grayed out as of right now, so I don't believe that they're working. If they are, I really haven't seen how. I checked on the phone and I've checked through the iPad, and I have not seen them working. Then you also have your bus mixes, which can be either aux or some form of subgroup, and you can have those become pre or post fader through your routing options. And right below it are your effect sends, with a total of 4 to choose from. In the input section, there is a stereo link button, but you can only link to each odd number channel. So if you want to do a stereo pair, you can only do a stereo pair of 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. You can't do anything like 7 and 6. You can't do anything where you want to jump channels like 10 and 12. When stereo linking, it's also possible that you can duplicate some of the settings from the channel from before, such as your compressors, your EQ, and other things. Okay, so on the input tab, you have some very flexible routing options. If you don't want to go to the routing page, this allows you to take, say, input 2 and patch it over to input 1 if you wanted to. Same thing with the USB. I'll get in depth with those a little later. Again, there's a redundancy of some channel input options. You also have phantom power, which is not global, so you have phantom power for each channel that's separate. You also have an insert point right here for FX, where you can, in an insert style, insert some compressors, a hall reverb, and you can go and select your effects. Okay, so now I'm in the gates tab, and the cool thing I see is that it allows you to duck stuff. So I'm actually using a duck right now, a ducker, and I'm ducking some music in the background. You can't really hear it because I don't have my mains playing out right now, but it's working flawlessly, and that's something amazing to see in this box. I'm using my microphone source on channel 1 to duck the music on channel 2, And you can use many other sources to key the gate. That would be great for ducking a delay or reverb possibly, or compressing it, or doing some other side chaining features that would be awesome for synth music or electronic dance music. And of course you have other parameters, your release, your attack, your side chain, all the things you could ever want inside of a gate. Okay, let's take a look at the EQ section. So right now I have an RTA on that came in the latest firmware, and there's a spectrogram right below that. In order to change your EQs, you have 4-bell EQs, and you can change those as well. You need to click on the number and then drag it up or down in order to do whatever you need to do. Or you can modify it by using the parameters just below it. Again, in the compressor tab, many options. Side chaining again available. If you know how to operate a basic compressor, this should be pretty easy for you to get around. Okay, so now we're on the sends page, or the busing page, where we have lots of flexible options for routing. Post EQ, pre fader, post fader, all these different things, a plethora of things. We can make it a subgroup if we wanted to. So very robust routing options when it comes to the sends. They can be sends or buses depending on how you want to use them and what you want to use them for. They can be pre-EQ, post-EQ, post-fader, subgroup, so many different options to choose from. Here you have the channel left-right assignments as well as the group assignments. Unfortunately, again, it looks like the program's not completely finished, so there's nothing here for group assignments, but I'm assuming that there will be something there later when they update the program. In the effects tab right now, we have 4 effects engines, and we have tons of reverbs to pick from, delays, modulation, compressors. They really outdid themselves with all these effects that you can see in such a small box for such a good price. Really good job, Behringer. Here in the meters tab, you can see all your outputs and your inputs at the same time. You can also see your P16 outputs as well. I don't have one to test with, so I can't really comment on that. In your left and right section, you can add effects, inserts if you would like. You can add an equalizer. You can't use a gate. You can use a compressor, and you can do some panning from left and right if you would like. All of your bus can send to effects, and when you have it set up so that you can send to effects, you can send those effects to other buses as well. So let's say you want to add some reverb in the monitor of the headphones, or the reverb or some kind of delay in your stage mix, so that your artist gets a little bit more confidence. You can also do that. Also note that on the FX channel input, you can also change that to USB as well. All of your effects sends are pan sensitive, meaning that they do operate in a stereo configuration, so that if you have any delays or reverbs that use a stereo effect, they will indeed be stereo on your left and right bus. One feature that I did not see that would be nice if Behringer can possibly add it was the ability to customize speakers to make them delay. Like, let's say you have a delay line that you want to use to delay some speakers in the back from the front to make them arrive at the ear at the same time. I didn't see anything dedicated to that, which would be a nice touch to put on this, as well as doing something in the headphones that, let's say you're monitoring from a remote location that's probably like 100 feet away, and you have on headphones, the bass buildup from the front speakers or the slapback from your tops kind of interfere with your monitoring. Even if you have some of the best isolation headphones, that would be a nice feature to have if possible later on. One thing that I didn't like was the fact that you can't just click anywhere on a channel strip in order to select that channel and do some parameter editing. You have to click in the box where it's blacked out, like where you see that 01 that's blacked out. You have to actually click in there to make sure that that channel is selected. And that can be kind of cumbersome when you're in a live environment and you're moving kind of fast paced. So this is definitely where having a MIDI control surface that's programmable would definitely come into play. I did that by going into my setup page and turning on the DIN connections. I haven't got a chance to play with the USB connections, but I'm using a BCF 2000 right now, and it began working flawlessly. I have my flying faders going, and everything just seems to be going okay with that. They did in the manual leave some MIDI implementation to talk about how to set up certain specific things, but there is no MIDI learn feature on the actual program itself, which also would be a nice touch. In a live sound environment, that feature request would definitely help because we're just moving at such a fast pace. So it would definitely be of benefit to have a MIDI learn function somewhere in this program. Okay, so I went ahead and I downloaded the USB drivers and installed them because I wanted to take the Audio drivers out for a spin to see how they would do in recording. It did install some MIDI drivers through USB, so that was a plus. And looking through, I was able to see all the inputs, all 18 inputs. Sony Vegas is what I'm using. And I was able to see all 18 outputs available through Audio drivers. Okay, so right now I have a microphone on channel 1 going into Sony Vegas. I have some music playing on channel 2. And I have a keyboard connected right now on channel 3. But right now in the routing options on the inputs, I actually have channels 2 and 3 on the same input. And I'll show you that right here. Okay, so on channel 2, remember I have music playing, but on input 3, it's supposed to be mirroring, according to the routing that I have here, it's supposed to be mirroring channel 2. But when you go to Sony Vegas, that won't be the case because it won't follow whatever the input routing is. It's going to follow whatever your connections are on the actual box. So you're not going to hear the music. You're actually going to hear the keyboard instead because that's what's plugged in on the box and input 3 on the actual console itself. Now, by default, your outputs to hear what you just played back or whatever you recorded and you want to play it back is going to go wherever you have your Audio 1 and 2 out located. So you can have that come back on channels input 1 or 2, or you can have it back on the aux return. You can even have it go to, I believe, effects. So again, there's a lot of routing options as far as the USB returns go, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. Also note that your aux sends, your outputs, whatever's going to those, will not be able to be recorded into the actual software because they have no USB output routing as of this revision of the software that they've released. So if you want to have your effects go into software, you're going to have to do some manual routing on the actual console, possibly patching some of your sends into a channel to come back in on. Okay, going back now, if you wanted your USB inputs changed around, remember how I was showing you before how if I had, for instance, a mic on channel 1 and I patched it to channels 2 and channel 3 on the actual mixer itself, that you basically wouldn't be able to get the software to see any difference because of the inputs on the actual console itself. Now, if you wanted to change that, you would actually go to USB outputs. I know it says USB outputs, but think of these as USB inputs of wherever you want your USB inputs to be patched. So for instance, I have a mic on channel 1. Now, if I want channel 3 to be that mic, when I go into my software, now you're going to see each channel that I go to after that. Let's say I change that to channel 2, you should still see a microphone doing the same exact thing because of the routing that I have right here. So even though my keyboard right now is connected to channel 3, when I go to play my keyboard right now, you wouldn't see anything at all. Also, with all the routing functions, you can see on your right hand side, you can do such things as pre-EQ, post-EQ, pre-fader, post-fader. So many different things can be done. Why is that important? Because let's say you're recording a show and you don't want your EQs or your pre-fader or your post-fader movements recorded. So that'll be a nice touch to have. Now, let's say I've recorded some stuff already and I wanted to make sure that I was able to have those outputs of what I just recorded go back into the mixer on the respective channels. Well, now what I would do is my master bus on whatever software I'm using, I now have 18 channels I can select back to come back on any of the input accepting channels on the actual mixer itself now. So what I would be able to do is route whatever I want. So in the case of a live recording, I would probably do a one-to-one routing. Let's say I want to do a virtual sound check or something like that. I would do a one-to-one routing, possibly have my channel 1 go to outputs 1 or output 2, and so on. Let's say that we have another program that we want to use and we want to have some output span over the actual mixer so we can do some mixing of it. I'm going to open up FL Studio 11 and let's do some quick routing of some sounds that I have here. Okay, just sending some random stuff to channels 3, 4, and send some other stuff to 5, 6. Okay. Now, if you want something to only go to channels 3, or you want something to only go to a certain channel, you have to make sure that you do the proper panning in your actual software so that, let's say I have a kick on channel 3 that I don't want it to go to 3 and 4 because of the stereo outputs. I want it to only go to channel 3 and maybe my snare to only channel 4 by panning left and right. Left being for 3, right being for channel 4. Here I was just using channels 1 and channel 2, but the idea is pretty much the same. And then I can bust them out if I want to. I can add effects, whatever have you, and I can do some flexible routing things if I want to. Okay, so here's what I think so far. As I was saying quite a few times, you know, I heard me say it really feels like an unfinished product. But even with everything feeling unfinished, I must say around $700 out the door for all this unit can do. The routing is amazing. I've never seen routing like this around this price point. That right there is what really sold me. The ability to be able to duplicate channels and move them around, patch them wherever you need to. All of your aux have EQs on them. You can go ahead and possibly do things like aux-fed subs, and then with MIDI capabilities, you can go ahead and automate certain things, put them on foot controllers and everything like that. So if you put your mind to it, there's a lot that this mixer can actually do. It's just unfortunate some of the things like the auto mixer, and there's the iPhone and iPad apps, they're far behind. I had a chance to check out how they actually feel, and honestly, the Windows PC app is the best way to go right now. The Android app does feel a little more responsive than the actual PC app, for the fact that you can touch it in almost any portion of the channel strip and be able to move it much quicker. The only problem is that, you know, if you're using it on a phone such as a Note 3, you still have the possibility of accidentally hitting the mute button. Even though they have an unlatched mute thing on the side that you can possibly use in a live situation, it's so easy to forget certain things like that. And you have to also remember, with layers, it's very easy to get caught up, so you have to be very careful on those fronts. The thing that I really do like about this mixer as well is in those environments where you really don't want a whole lot of, well, I think I know how to run sound type of people coming in. You can password protect this. You can recall different scenes in case somehow some knucklehead does manage to get into the unit and change some things around. You can have your snapshots and go back and recall certain things. If you have theater shows and everything, you can recall stuff. Plus there's no knobs on it, so the only thing that you can possibly do is unhook something. So that being said, it's perfect for smaller churches where you just can possibly do a set it or forget it situation. And if you do have a person who comes in that actually knows sound, you can add a MIDI interface and be able to control some things. Well, this is Donovan Capron, your gospel producer, and I'm signing off. Until next time, subscribe, drop some comments, let me know what you think. Take care and have a blessed one.